Geordie. Hello, Vanessa. How are you? It's great to have you with us. I'll waffle on for a few minutes while people arrive and come on in. Hello, Daniel. Hello, David. It's great to have you with us. Thank you so much for being part of today's briefing. We have 149 people signed up for this, which is amazing. And in fact, little fact that I shared with you guys, within 15 minutes of it going out, we had 45 people sign up, which is remarkable. So obviously people, you know, it's really nice to know how invested people are in the EuRA event, because that, for good or for worse, makes us know that we're doing the right job, and that this session and the evaluations that we send out are to ensure that we are continuing to deliver the event that you need and want. So it's my huge pleasure to introduce you to Alistair Murray, EuRA's president, and Isabel Cudell, EuRA's vice president. Thank you so much for being part of this today. I mean, a lot of what we discussed recently at the board meeting came out of the fact that you had some very creative ideas about how we should change looking at the evaluations, getting the evaluations, and what we're going to evaluate. So I'll start off, Alistair, by just asking you, what was it that made you kind of think, yes, we should look differently at how we assess the event?
Hi, everybody. So I think going right back to my time on the board when I first joined, every year we've had a conference and we've sent out a survey and we've received the results and gone through the results. So that hasn't changed. Just year on year, I think sometimes we decided that although the information was great, there wasn't a lot we could do with some of the answers. So to hear, for example, that the vast majority of people at a particular conference at a particular city thought the lamb was dry, and that was all over the survey one year. The lamb was too dry. Good to know, but there's nothing we can do with that. So we decided, is there any point asking the question if we can't do anything with the answer? So then we thought, well, maybe we need to look at the survey and look at the questions we're asking, just so that we can then get everyone's feedback and then do something with those responses. So we have formed a little working group, including Isabel, myself, Simon Robbins, and Bryony, and we started from scratch with the survey, looked at the questions, took out quite a few, and then just kept in the ones and reworded some that we thought, actually, if we ask that question and enough people answer it, we can do something with that feedback. And then in addition to that, added the questions on the app. So for the sessions, rather than leaving it for weeks after the event to say, what do you think of a particular session, we were encouraging people to comment and to provide their feedback either towards the end of that session or immediately afterwards, just so we could get more reliable responses as well. So I think that made a big difference. And so therefore, we now had a huge body of responses. I think 250 odd responses out of 750 delegates is pretty good. So therefore the next stage is to talk you through our conversations that we had around that feedback and what we're going to do about it.
Fantastic. And I mean, Isabel, I know you've been, again, you know, as we've worked together over the years, you know, through the board, and as Alistair said, we've had those conversations. It did kind of get to the point where we were thinking we need to change this and get, you know, more detailed answers, right?
Yes. Valuing members' opinions is crucial, although also generally speaking, we do get a lot of really nice conference. We really appreciate what we do, but we can always do better. And it is absolutely critical that we listen and we take action upon it. So that's what we did. And as Alistair was saying, we created this focus group, narrowed down the questions, and it is never too much to insist on how important it is that all of you take time to answer those questions, even during the conference, now with the app. After each session, the moderator usually would ask, can you please rate this session on the spot? It's always easier than coming back home and then remembering what it was. So also a tip for the next, you can see with this session we're doing today that we do take this very seriously, your feedback, and please do take those seconds to evaluate, because we listen.
Yeah, thanks, Isabel, because I mean, obviously, again, we'll be using the new app next year, and so that system will be more embedded, which is great. So again, as people realize, oh yeah, I can now leave my comments, that worked really, really well and gave us some very, very constructive feedback, and actually really positive feedback about those sessions, which is different to how it used to be in the past, because like you say, we'd send that out a week later and you're like, yeah, I kind of remember being in that session, but I'm not sure if we didn't take any notes, quite what I was thinking. Just a couple of bits of housekeeping. First of all, the session is being recorded, so I will make it live on, I will put it on demand on YouTube beginning of next week. And just to say, please feel free to put comments into the chat box about what we're going to talk about, the changes that are being made. Just be aware that all the other feedback we do is anonymized. If you want to make a comment in the chat today and you'd like that to be anonymous, then please just send it directly to me. And you can just click on the little thing where it says hosts and panelists and just get it to say hosts and panelists, and only me, myself, only me, Isabel and Alistair will see it, and we will not name you. So if there is something you do want to bring to our attention, you can do that without kind of like naming yourself. Okay, so that's the first thing. So, Alistair, one of the big things that is going to change as a result of the survey is, I'll leave it to you.
Well, so one of the big things that's going to change is the days that the conference is being held on. So we were very mindful of the fact that as EuRA has grown, lots of people travel from outside of Europe, membership is changing and evolving. Lots of people are getting a long haul flight, and as a result of that, lots of people leave on the Friday. The lobby was pretty full on the Friday morning of the conference with people going home. So, and that was reflected in the feedback as well. So I think people would like to stay, but then either couldn't get a later flight, wasn't available, or some didn't want the conference to impinge too much on their weekend. So we had this conversation and we decided this year to start earlier. So we will start the symposia. I think that's right. Is that the plural of symposium?
Yeah.
The symposia will be on the Monday with the speed dating event. So speed dating right at the beginning so that people that want to meet people for the first time can do that as soon as possible. And then the conference opening and all the sessions will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So then everything kind of shifts forward. So the welcome reception is on the Tuesday, the gala dinner is on the Wednesday, and the party night is on the Thursday. And then everyone is free to either stay in Villamore if they want, or travel home on the Friday morning without missing any of the conference. So everything moves forward by a day. That's one of the big changes.
That is really interesting, and Isabel, you and I were just talking about this because we noticed in Dublin at the party night at the Round Rooms at the Mansion House, there were at least 70 people who didn't make it, who were signed up for that event, right?
And also
Sorry, go on.
in Seville too, remember we had that ticket system, and the venue was really, really cool at the nice little market. And just from the tickets that were left, we could see we had around 50 people who had signed up and then they couldn't make it. Yes. So we definitely want to have more people for the full program, and we're trying this out this year.
Fantastic. And Alistair, that's quite venue specific, right? We keep talking. These are the new words we have. Venue specific is a very big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that we're listening to the feedback. That's what we've heard. We believe people really want to come to the party night on Friday. I'm sure some are still around and they're just too tired, but I think there are a lot of people that actually have a flight and are going home. So yeah, we'll bring things forward a day and see how that.
Yeah, I had 2 people come up to me interestingly in Dublin just the afternoon, I think, of Friday to say, I've got a 5 o'clock flight, or I've got to leave the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I can come to the party because I really just need to get something to eat and then go to bed. And again, it's that kind of comment that makes me realize we didn't communicate enough that this was a dinner. So you could just come for a quick dinner and then leave. Although I did say don't leave before the dances because that's going to be awesome, which it was. That was really cool. So yes, so thank you. So yeah, in summary then we'll start Monday, symposia and the speed dating, which was a great success. And then Tuesday, opening, plenary, welcome. Wednesday, plenary, gala. Thursday, plenary, and party. And that will start. We managed, thanks to TAD, it's been renegotiated all our dates for Villamora, so that will begin in 2024, which is cool. So the next thing, thank you, there's some nice comments. Oh, yes, thank you, MJ Pashal, that's a good point. Possibly extend the room blocks rate with a hotel for a percentage for people who want to stay on. We do that, and we have done that in Villamora. So the room rate, I think, extends right through till Monday. Tad can confirm that. Tad, if you can put that note into the chat box. The room rate, we normally ask them to basically do it Sunday to Sunday or Saturday to Saturday. So that's a great point. And Dino, Alistair, great idea. Moving venues forward a day makes sense. So thank you very much. That's good to know.
What can you put venue specific?
Venue specific. I will just say it because, again, now we are in the situation where that party night potentially is going to be quite a lot bigger. Normally that's about 400, 450 because a lot of people will have gone home. If people are staying through till Friday, that will be a bigger party. So we'll make sure that we make that something really special. Well, we do always make something special. Speaking of, actually, Alistair, I'll bring this in now, talking about special things and things that happened in Dublin. The Mobility Light Orchestra was a huge success, wasn't it?
It really was. That came through, pardon the pun, loud and clear in the feedback. I'm biased, obviously, because I was involved and absolutely loved it. But the team that put it together, including Sophie and all the guys that worked incredibly hard, practicing songs online for weeks in advance, did an amazing job, and it was really well received. I think everyone loved it, something different. And yeah, I think we have the green light from TAD to do it again in Villamora. Venue providing, and obviously the hotel has to, it's venue specific, as everything is. But yeah, fingers crossed that we can have similar live music with the MLO again in 2024, which would be
thanks
great.
to all of you who took part in that, because it was a huge amount of work. And you gave your time so selflessly and immediately said, you know, we'd love to do it again. So we'd love to have that happen again. It was great. It was a great atmosphere. So Preeti has made a good point about numbers. So Tad says, can I play the triangle? Oh, and also Tad just said, to go back to MJ, the room rate starts 3 days in advance of the conference and lasts for 3 days after the conference. So if you do want to stay on in Portugal and play golf or go cycling, as Renee has just sent a very interesting day, then we will make that happen. So one of the big conversations we had a couple of weeks back was about numbers. Isabel, do you want to start off on that process?
Yes, I think it's also good to quote anonymously, of course, but quote, that was probably one of the questions that we got most answers to or suggestions. And I'll start with one that says, one of the best, however, the space for the welcome reception was not suitable for 750, great conference, there was an issue with limited meeting space, overall noise levels, loved, great session, hopefully it can be in bigger places as having meetings was a bit difficult. Although appreciating increasing the numbers with the same venue makes it a bit difficult. And keeping the number of attendees down by limiting the number of attendees per member. This was a very tough conversation, wasn't it, Alistair?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things where I feel like we knew pretty much as soon as the welcome reception had finished that that was going to be mentioned a lot in the feedback. We knew that for sure, because it was very obvious that there were too many people in that room, the hotel staff were struggling, the noise was too loud. We knew that immediately. It's like, yeah, this hasn't worked. Wasn't particularly easy to predict that beforehand, and there are there's reasons and there's context behind decisions that were made, but we knew straight away that that was an issue. And so when we started to receive the survey responses, that bit wasn't surprising. Everybody said it, and I think everyone would agree. So, seeing a comment from Tad. So yeah, so the first time they'd used that space for so many people. So yeah, we knew that, and we know we need to do something about it. And then that led to a kind of wider conversation around the attendance of the conference, how we deal with incredibly popular conference, which most people sign up for immediately, and we always have a waiting list, and then we can sometimes release names from the waiting list and then still have a waiting list after that. So that's quite a big conversation. So The key point that's going to change again for next year is that we will limit the number of delegates per company. So for the first time, there'll be a maximum of 4 delegates per company. And we decided, there's lots of different ways you could break that down in terms of the different types of membership, or whether they're active members or different regions. But we thought we'd keep it simple, 4 members maximum per company, so that we can hopefully accommodate, we think, between 650 and 750 people in total, but have a broader spectrum of people, about lots of companies are represented by a smaller number of people. So the overall attendance, like I say, will be the same, but we don't have, say, 20 people from one company. So I don't think that's necessarily giving best value for money for our members to go to a conference where a smaller number of organizations are incredibly well represented. So that's been the decision. And I think, the other thing just to mention really quickly on that is, when we have these conversations as a board, it's important that we do have different opinions when we have that conversation, because I work for a company that could be one of those that said that's not fair. We're all over Europe and we want to bring 15 people, but I absolutely think it is fair. And I know Isabel Primon, similar sort of setup, working across the world, could happily bring multiple people, but she said, I think, overall, I think that probably is fair to limit the number of people. So 4 per company across the board, I think, will make a difference. And then I suppose, Isabel, back to you, in terms of venues and then how we look. So obviously we're planning the 2024 is set, but then 25 and 26, we've made a couple of changes to potential venues based on that feedback as well.
Yes, it's a very, very fine line when we're discussing the venues, because another feedback that we've had consistently over the years, I would say, is how there's a family environment to our conferences, as opposed to those 1,500 people conferences that you need to go to congress centers and then you spend half an hour between meeting places. It was quite unanimous that our members really appreciate the coziness is not really the right word, but the environment and the family environment. We always talk about the EuRA family, and thank you, Preti, the warmth of our conferences, and it's a very tough balance to keep that warmth and at the same time see that we have waiting lists, and so we do have to cap a number, otherwise it does become too big, and we don't want to lose that warmth and family feeling. So next year in Vilamora, the hotel will definitely cater for all of us. The year after, we've made some changes because the initially chosen location, there was no way it could grow anymore. And when you put both things together, you definitely don't want, as Alistair is saying, we don't want to leave anybody out. And the representation of all members is crucial. We're a members association. We're here for all members, independently of the size of the company. And so it was a tough decision. And that this change will also have an impact on the next venues going forward. And so sometimes we may have to repeat a certain location. We have to also represent different regions. So although we do know that you all really like to be by the sea in sunny places, people are coming from all over the world, all over Europe, and so we have to go north-south. But that that rule won't be. Probably will have to be a bit more flexible with that rule because there is this. For us, it's a priority to accommodate the diversity of the representation of all our members.
Absolutely, and I mean, interestingly, we've taken the decision that the conference will not grow any bigger. So in reality, we are talking about capping at 700 because there are 50 people who are then involved in it regardless. Our AV production crew, our employees, our helpers, the board. So, again, it's critical. There's a film going out next week, just to tell you, bookings open on the 25th of September. The other change that we're making, I think, if I'm right in saying this, that members will be given priority booking dates. So there will be, it will be open to members first. We don't know logistically how that's going to work as yet, but we will figure that out. And as you say, Isabel, I mean, that has had a big impact on the venues that we were looking at for the coming years, because we were really, honestly, after COVID, we were looking at 600. We weren't expecting the conference to maintain this level of demand. We got that wrong. Demand is there. But obviously, this is something that will be monitored every year. We're looking at some really exciting places. Dino says Italy, Greece says Dubrovnik and Malta. We totally get that. So
we might go back.
We might go back. And actually, Alistair, on that score, while that sort of ties in, so one of the things that people really love about the conference, and it's the only time that the big conference room is ever full, is the reveal of the next year's destination. Alistair, we're going to make a bit of more of a song about that. Do you want to talk about how?
So we are looking at sponsorship. We had a long conversation about how sponsorship is structured, and also very mindful of the fact that we want to have levels of sponsorship that is appropriate and would appeal to smaller companies as well. So we don't want to exclude any smaller DSPs from not being able to afford sponsoring the EuRA conference. So that was really important to us. But yeah, in terms of the reveal, we will have a sponsor for that reveal. And I know it's incredibly popular. It's the part of the conference where the biggest room is always full, and that will allow somebody exposure for their brand. And then the money that is paid for that exposure, for that sponsorship, will go to the charity. So yeah, so I think we do a really good job every year. I was completely blown away by the lady from the Irish charity in Dublin. She was amazing. And I think every year we do a really good job. So this is another way of contributing to a local charity by sponsoring the reveal video.
Yeah, and we talk about environmental social governance a lot. And obviously, Isabel, I know that's something that's very, very close to your heart, and we're going to continue the focus on sustainability and environmental social governance. But ESG is more than just sustainability. As we've been talking about, it is also about how EuRA contributes to the wider society. It's about how, as an organisation, we can be part of wherever it is that we're holding the event. So this is a great idea. It's a really nice way of doing stuff. So thank you, Maria Carisas. So another thing that we talked about this year, because it came up, I mean, again, talking about things that are venue specific. In Seville, we were able to have a big networking lounge. In Munich, I don't think we did. In Warsaw, I know we did. In Malta, I think we did. In Dublin, we didn't have the space to do that. But that is something, I think, Alistair, that you felt altogether was quite the priority.
Definitely. That did come across really clearly on the survey results. That people said, how could the conference, when asked, how could the conference be improved? A lot of people did mention more space for networking. And that's definitely a consideration when we look at hotels ahead of time. And actually in Dublin, I think the conference or the hotel manager did a good job of opening up more space, and they opened up the restaurant and the breakfast area so that people could go and sit in there to have their meetings, which was great. So they did respond really well. But again, it was kind of, it's all a bit spread out, and people were going upstairs and people were going through the courtyard. And so, yeah, the good news is, again, happy catchphrase, venue specific, but in Villamora, the venue does allow us to have a specific networking space. So lots of tables and chairs, and an area where it can become quite apparent that would be a good place to meet, a good place to hold your meetings, and you won't necessarily be kind of wandering around. I've done it before, when you have a half an hour meeting, you spend 25 minutes finding somewhere to sit, and then you pretty much have got to go now, so you've got to go meet someone else. Not the best use of your time. So we're going to hopefully avoid that as much as possible.
And it also means that we can use that same area for people to have meetings over lunch. I mean, that was one thing, that we didn't have the opportunity for in Dublin. The teams were trying to clear the room, so we were constantly asking people, do you mind terribly if you can clear out? This way we'll be able to have a more relaxed lunch service every day.
And sometimes we even have smaller rooms available for rent, Don, right? If you'd like to rent a smaller room to have your meetings throughout, get in touch with Don, because he usually knows the hotel rooms, meeting rooms by heart.
Yeah, Brian is the expert on that. We're all actually going out to Villamora in a couple of weeks, and that's one of the things we're going to do so that she can structure those packages for people. So that's always worth thinking. Terry, thank you for saying that. The Dublin Hotel did a really good job of doing that with the restaurant and opening it. They did. They were very proactive. We didn't ask them to do that. They just did it, which is, that's always great. And yes, Brian says probably better to get in touch with me. So yes, like I say, that has changed the way that we're looking at the venues that we're using going forward, that a networking lounge is really important. So we also made some changes to the way that we're going to deal with sessions. Alistair, do you want to take the lead on that?
Sure. Yeah, so this is really important for us. When we talked about changing the survey and changing the questions, the one thing we were really clear on is we must get constructive feedback on the sessions, because that's the bit that obviously we can control the most.
Yeah.
So some of the other things about, you know, food and the weather and other aspects of the conference, there's not a huge amount we can do about that, unfortunately, but we can do a lot with the sessions. And we have had this conversation before. So one thing we did really try to do in Dublin is get new speakers. We wanted people to be on stage who hadn't spoken at a conference before. And I think we were pretty successful in doing that. I think there were lots of new people that we thought we did a great job, and hopefully we'll speak again in the future. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to try and get those people that haven't spoken before. But also we asked for topics. We asked for what would you like to see, as well as everything that was spoken about before. Would you like to see that again? So most of the things we spoke about in Dublin, most people said, yes, I think we should talk about that again. And that will happen at some point. But also we said, what would you like to see discussed in the future? And we took some of those key topics that were mentioned a lot, and we've added those into the conference program for Villa Moore. So top of the list, I think, probably by far, was artificial intelligence. That conversation came up in lots of different sessions and lots of different formats, and that, I think, was number one on the list. So we have to have a session on that. And then there was a number of other different topics that we decided we wanted to be obviously to be up to date and to be topical, and we want to bring in speakers who, in some ways, maybe from our industry, but we're also looking at speakers externally as well to offer a different viewpoint. But like I say, this is the bit where we feel like we have the most control. So we study the feedback, we look what's been successful, and then adapt accordingly. So the sessions will be different. And then there's maybe as an aside, we did also say, if we're going to spend this amount of time analysing what people want to listen to, what we don't then want to do is have two sessions running at the same time, because the feedback then is, well, I wanted to go to both. And if we are, on the one hand, limiting the number of people that attend from a particular company, and on the other hand, putting on sessions at the same time, that makes life very difficult for people. So you'll only run sessions concurrent. There won't be anything on at the same time.
Yeah.
Do we want to remind so that there are general subjects that we've thoroughly analysed feedback. Also, of course, bearing in mind whatever, well, AI is and Chat GPT is such an important thing now, as it's that you can't avoid it at all. But maybe remind that which month is it that we do a call for session submission? Is that the correct word?
Yes.
Expression? Yes.
It's
a very democratic process.
Yeah, it is. So basically, we will be opening everything on September the 25th. That will be bookings, that will be call for speakers, and again, thank you, exactly. We're going to do that the same way that we did it this year, which is an online survey. Tell us what it is. We'll lay out the program and in terms of, you know, what's going to be the major topics. And another great thing about not running them concurrently is we get to film everything, which means that you, after the event, if you couldn't make it to a session, obviously right now, those sessions that were filmed in Dublin are only available to people who were at the event. We don't make those public until a few months later, but it will mean that the whole body of the conference will be available to see afterwards. So if you can't make it to something, you will be able to go, which is great. The other thing, so yes, September the 25th will be when we send out the call for speakers and the call for bookings. And I think we leave that open until more or less the board meeting in November. So I think final submissions for sessions will be November 3rd. So there's a good 8 weeks to be able to figure out whether you'd like to speak about something.
And remember, we're reviewing those submissions that call for speakers. The more detailed you are about what you intend to speak about, the more information you provide on who will be with you on stage or not, depending on the subject, of course, the better the consideration. That's as simple as that.
That's a great point. I mean, when we were going through them, of course, this was the first year that we've done it this way. But when we were going through them, it genuinely isn't enough just to say your name. We need to know why you're passionate about that, what it is, because again, you know, I think you probably saw, we were very happy with the results that came back from the surveys of the sessions this year. They kind of hit the spot. We were really pleased about that. So, you know, the more accurate we can be about the expertise, especially we want to pick people who haven't always been on stage. So, you know, we know that certain people are absolutely fantastic speakers. When we, you know, are looking at somebody who we don't know, it's the more information you can give us, the better. So that'll be great. Dino, you raise an interesting point. Dino says, will there be any extra activities for family members who come along at the conference? Now, that is something that we have discussed. With the numbers being so high, we will, I'm pretty sure I'm saying this correctly, guests will not be doing guest passes unless we have places at the end, which we haven't done for the last 2 years. So Bryony, is that correct? I know you were taking care of that. So what we'll try and do instead is just give you plenty of venue-specific information, great things to do in Villamora, sailing courses, you can go and do paddy, you can go and do golf, you can go cycling, you can take the train to Faro. Well, it's a little bit more difficult, but go and see the major towns, Lagos, Faro, it's beautiful. But yeah, so anything to do with car hire, that kind of thing, will give you as much information as we can. Oh, and on that score, actually, I must just big shout out the tourist information that Ronald Hooskamp and his team put together for the app in Dublin. I'm hoping they'll do that again for Villamora. It was fantastic. So
thank you, James.
Yeah. So the other thing that we've decided, there were two things. So Alistair and Isabel again. So first of all, Isabel, state of the industry. We're going to leave that session till a couple of weeks before, and we've got a process for choosing that now, right? We're going to do that slightly differently. But more importantly, 2 of the slots that are available for plenary will not be specified. So when you decide to put in an application to speak at the conference, if you've got a great idea for something that you don't see on that list of things that we're saying are involved, you'll have the opportunity to tell us. So that was one thing I think that came out as well, which would be good. Isabel, do you want to talk about newcomers?
Yes. That has been, so when we go back to data analytics and who is our membership, and although it still always feels like the EuRA family, we're very happy to see that the number of newcomers rises by the year, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And we feel that although we've been organizing, I think maybe 2-3 conferences now. We started with a newcomer session, then it turned into a newcomers coffee, I believe. But still, it wasn't enough. We do get some feedback from newcomers saying it was my first time, felt a bit lost, and you don't know what you don't know. And we know that people who are experienced conference attendees, we will very gladly include, present, give some tips, etc. So the newcomers will have a specified lanyard and a briefing pack, so they can be easily identified. And I know that anybody seeing that there's a newcomer just by the different color of the lanyard will be there to help. We did have it wasn't really a buddy system. We had a mentor system. Some of the more experienced attendees had mentor on their flags. I don't know if we call these flags. Remember these? These would have a mentor underneath, but it still doesn't stand out as much as it could. And going here to some comments, this was my first year ever. I can say it was daunting at first as I was on my own. However, EuRA staff was very helpful and welcoming. I did not feel alone too long. And then we did have this suggestion in particular, if newcomers were wearing a different color sign. So that's where the different lanyard idea comes from.
And Liris, I'm glad you said that. It was a little bit overwhelming the first few days. It is. I mean, I've been going to the EuRA conference for 25 years, and I went to a conference recently in Asia where I didn't know anyone. and it was only 250 people, and I sat like Mr. No Friends at lunch going, oh, no. So it is difficult. If you're a massive extrovert and you're able to just go out there and that's where you thrive, then it's an amazing environment. For the vast majority of us, it's quite intimidating. So yeah, thanks, Isabel. That's a really good, some constructive things, right?
I remember that vividly, my first conference in Rome, where it really felt like there were about 500 people there, I imagine, and it felt like 499 people were the best of friends and have known each other for years, except me. And like, I didn't know anybody, and how come everyone else knew everyone so well? And it is daunting, absolutely. So I think we can all play a part in making people feel a bit more welcome, and the lanyard will definitely.
And Diana, you make a really good point. Perhaps you can assign mentors for newcomers early on. That's something we could really think about, that we can put the list of newcomers out, or the list of mentors out to the newcomers, and you can find someone who maybe works in your region or something that you can contact them and say, we'll do that through the app, and say, I'd love to just talk to you about what can I expect from this event. Because it kind of, one of our delegates came up and said it felt like a family reunion and I wasn't part of the family, which was a bit sad. So on that score, we were talking about mentors, we were talking about how we can get people back together. I'd just like to talk, Pretty, you mentioned in the feedback just now in the chat about the new app. We do have a new app. We went with this for several reasons, none of which were to do with cost. This actually cost us more. We went with this new app for logistical purposes. It's going to enable us to take the bookings directly through the app, which means that we can identify people much faster in terms of things like being newcomers, in terms of things like sending anybody coming to a symposium their badge in advance so that they can print it and bring them with them on a piece of A4. There's all sorts of logistical reasons why we went for it. But we have taken your app issues on board. And we will be changing it, because obviously one of the things that people loved about the Hoover app was you could create groups. I remember, I think it was in Seville, somebody had said, does anyone in the Netherlands want to come out for dinner on Monday? I'd love to meet my colleagues. What a great idea. So we're going to be, is that right, Alistair? We're incorporating that. There's a few other things, right?
I mean, there were definitely glitches with the new app, which was mentioned in the SurveyMonkey feedback. Because at the time, I remember my phone kept buzzing and it was like, oh, Ignite starts soon. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
But okay.
5 times.
Yeah, so I don't think it does. I think it's tomorrow. No, it's starting now. No, it's not. So there were definitely glitches, and I feel like the reasons were good for changing from Hoover to our specific EuRA app, which is different for each conference. But those glitches need to be ironed out and improved for next time, definitely.
Yeah, we've had a follow-up meeting with our developers, and those are the things that we put forward based on your feedback, that we need to be able to create groups. We need, and from our end as well, there are logistical things like we couldn't stop those blasts going out. They were just going out at the wrong time. But I've got to give them credit. They had somebody on at the end of a WhatsApp 24 hours a day, and we were like, oh, stop this from happening, and they did. So it was really good. Thank you, Dana. On the online session before the conference, maybe you can group them, some 5 people for 5 to 10 minutes where they can present themselves. Again, I think that was discussed, wasn't it? That rather than doing what we did this year with the newcomers, we'll have a much more technical solution and putting them into groups. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was the idea. Yeah, we'd have a session before the conference online and try and have online breakout rooms so that people could meet virtually.
Yeah, which makes sense. And of course, that's way beyond my Zoom capability. So we'll have our production design team sorting that out, which is very much a relief. So we sort of touched on it. We understand that sunny places are definitely where everybody wants to go, and there were definitely comments, as there are every year. But as you say, we need representation. We need to be mindful of our membership and representation, right?
And people don't sometimes. You have to be in the event, what's also called MICE industry, right? Meetings, events and incentives or conferences. And it is not an easy task to find a hotel who will tick all the boxes. And we are a pretty demanding lot, as you can imagine. Our checklist is quite large. And so, we've been hearing some requests for some locations for a long time. We've tried some locations that then we realized that they wouldn't work for us because 750 people is a lot of people to cater for lunch, for meeting, for breakfast, etc. And that takes a pretty big hotel that still doesn't feel like a conference center, like a congress center. So there's a challenge there. Sometimes we just can't go where we wish, but where it is possible. But do keep sending propositions that we will consider.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say this to everybody who's on the call and to everybody that you know. If something opens in your region that we haven't discovered, tell us, because you know we try and go to the IMEX show at least once every 2 or 3 years. You tend to find out about new openings, places that have been extended. And Dana, you're right. Exhibition grounds. This is a very, Dana says exhibition grounds will not work. Then we can have more people participating. This is such an important conversation that we've had over the years. Dublin was probably enough of a convention centre that we would ever consider. You had to go outside, you had to go across that. People weren't very happy with that. They weren't very happy with that in Mallorca, where we had to cross the reception area of the hotel. It was just slightly separated. People tell us year on year they want to be able to easily network. So a big bar is really important. A big networking space is really important. Somewhere where we can, have a networking room. They've got to be able to cater. So, I mean, we saw one fantastic venue. I won't tell you where, but one fantastic venue. And we were absolutely gung-ho to sign the contracts. And they came back and said, just don't think we can do it well enough with the numbers that you're talking about. Even though physically they knew they could accommodate us, they were like, we won't shine. And if we don't shine, we don't want to do it. So like Isabel said, if you know of somewhere, please let us know. Please.
Yes, and we know we started out with that conversation. Sunny places are. I mean, if you can combine business, hard business with sunshine and some sea views, that's amazing. But we are very, very aware of the presentation. And Ben, Mauritius, we have people coming from all over the world, and even though there are visa issues. Now imagine we would go to a location where a lot of us would need a visa to get to. So we also have to have that in mind, how easily people can get to it. I remember another specific location where we realized that just the board members alone, we kind of mixed it up how we were getting there. So then we said, okay, if a small group of people, we still didn't get it right the first time. Imagine 700 of us. So that was a no-go for that location, because sometimes at the access there, be it the airport or the location access from the airport to the hotel, the venue, if it's not obvious. And then many people, as we know, stay in nearby hotels. So I know, Dom, when you come up with a new hotel or a new venue, you always say, okay, so this is the main conference hotel, and around the block we have several other options, accommodation options. So as you can see, that's there are a lot of little boxes that we have to tick.
And that's a really interesting one as well, because when we chose Dubrovnik, I mean, we all on that site visit, we all walked into that hotel and just went, wow. I mean, stunning. But then we're like, it's 35 minutes in a taxi from the airport. It's 25 minutes in a taxi into town. People will not like the fact that they're sort of corralled in a resort. You won't have that. No one minded. So, and there were no other hotels anywhere near. I mean, the people who were staying in other venues were being bussed into the city. So sometimes it works, but normally, exactly as you say, Isabel, it's like in Villamora, we knew there's a Dom Pedro, there's a Crown Plaza, there's a Valle Gale, there's a Gale hotel. There's about 7 different hotels around. So lots of different, and also, one of the comments that came back about Dublin was how expensive it was in terms of accommodation. Now, that's something we should probably say now. Prices have gone way up. I mean, you're probably all finding this from your own experience of traveling right now. But I mean, we are finding that where our maximum ceiling used to be for a delegate rate for the room, we would negotiate on your behalf at around the 160 to 170 mark. That isn't possible. Everything's above 200. And when we had that conversation in Villamora, they very candidly said our air conditioning bill alone is 25% higher than it was in 2020. So, those costs, everyone's passing them on. So yes, that pretty well covers, I think, most of the things that we had down. If anybody's got something that they would like to comment on, or that, sorry, James says, what about a different time of year and we can go skiing? So someone else said, could we not do this on a cruise ship? And I thought, oh, that's fun. And then I watched a program on Netflix about COVID and the cruise ships that got stuck. I thought, no, let's not do that. Do either of you have anything that we've forgotten, that or just
one thing really quickly? I know you always want to keep this light and positive. The one thing to mention really quickly is that the fact that we won't be taking up people's suggestions of having a table plan for their gala dinner. We don't think that's necessary. We also don't think it's necessary to be queuing to get into a gala dinner, or to be desperate to sit next to people. I don't think that's necessary, because that's part of I think the joy of going to a conference is you don't always sit next to people, from your own country or from your own company. Meet new people and have a good time. So we're definitely veering away from a table plan. It's too complicated and it would get political potentially, and we just don't think there's any need. So the gala dinner in Villamora will be a really nice venue, really nice space within the hotel. There's no rush to get in there, and there'll be no front row seats to see the band, because everyone's standing up anyway. So there's no point. Is the other subject to mention?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Some very nice comments. Gaynor, thank you. You made a great event this year. Well done. Diana says about Dubrovnik, didn't mind at all. Thank you so much for that. Yes, thank you, Miranda, about our brilliant photographer, Alex. He was at the gala dinner, but what we discussed this actually at the last board meeting, what we'd like is, years ago in Lisbon, everyone was photographed in that gala dinner, face on. And that was great, because everyone then is able to go to the Flickr account and download the photographs of them at their table. So we will definitely be doing that. Thank you very much indeed. Kerry, thank you for your support. That's really nice of you to say. Thank you for being the most awesome organisation in our industry. Oh, that's very, very kind of you. And yes, we are changing. We're going to do the opening. We're not going to have an opening keynote. Francis will continue to be the conference host, but we are looking for an awesome closing keynote. I think probably most of you who were there would agree Ken Wadike was one of the best keynotes we've ever had at an event. So we will stick with what we know works. Friday, Maria, yes, Friday will be free. It will be a day of doing whatever you want to do. We won't be organising anything in the conference. We'll finish with the party night on Thursday. So Friday will be, for the last people, I think it will be golfing. Preeti, thank you so much. Over the last 11 years, I've only gratitude for EuRA. Thank you for what you've created. That's really, yes, thank you, James, exactly. In response to Maria, Friday is to recover from the party. It's to just literally like that. That's great.
Dom, the other point that I think Preeti made, which is a good one, is will you look at new MCs for the conference, non-committee members? And I think the answer to that is definitely. Yeah, we would look. We're constantly looking at having new faces speaking and moderating and participating. So yes, definitely.
Yes, definitely. That makes absolute sense. Is there anything that we've forgotten to talk about? No, I think we've come to the end of pretty well everything that came through in the comments. So again, thank you. Yes, Brian says book early, 25th of September. There's a film going out next week. Book early. If you haven't seen the emails go out, or you've dropped off our lists, or you're being bounced from our lists, it'll be on the website, available from the 25th of September, and it will go through the app, but the app won't actually go live till January. So Isabel and Alistair and the whole board, those of you who are on the call, it was a really good meeting going through all this. We'll do this now every year, right? We'll bring you there'll be a summary of this as well in the next European, which will go out in July. And Alistair and Isabel, thank you so much. It's been really good to speak with you both. Thank you both for your passion and for keeping, we're all so passionate about this event. But just to say, EuRA is more than just the conference. Don't forget the training. Don't forget all the briefings that we do. Don't forget all the educational stuff that we do. Don't forget the EGQS. Don't forget all of that good stuff as well. And if you have any comments, just let us have them. We're here to listen. So
listen.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you everybody for being on the call. Like I say, if you had to drop off, it will be on YouTube next week. Inigo Lopez says, thank you. Inigo, we thank you. Inigo put together the Mobility Live Orchestra. Amazing, amazing evening. Great celebration for 25 years. And I'm afraid you have made yourself a job for life. So Alistair,
Love it. Love it.
Thanks, everybody. It's been really nice to see you all. We'll catch up again. The next thing is going to be some point in July. We're going to do an ESG briefing, and we're going to do a briefing on direct clients. Thank you for all your, it's amazing, despite so successful the conference 750 in a different location, you still take it seriously, our feedback, and explain to us all. Thank you, Geordie. That is really kind of you to say. Great to see you all. Thank you for being part of this. We'll see you all soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.